is. Welcome to the Leader Mentality Show with Rob Clemons. And we have Frank Dominick with us as always today. And we are diving all into real estate. We're diving all into home building today. And one thing that's really special about the show is we've got some questions from outside viewers about real estate and construction. So I kind of thought we'd have a little fun today. And we're actually going to share a little bit. I'm going to throw you some real estate questions that are coming from the outside parties. And we also want to welcome people, right, Frank? If you have got questions out there, you want to know more about real estate, you might be thinking about investing, selling your home, whatever it is. Frank's going to be here to answer those, maybe me too. And then if you have home building and remodel questions, I'm going to be here.
They're going to go to you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, but before we get into all that, man, what you been up to over there?
Just been playing music and then doing real estate.
Have you been? Well, that sounds. What is your genre right now? Are you just all, you know?
It's essentially classic
Leonard
rock.
Skinner?
Classic rock.
Okay.
We do from like the 70s to the 90s.
What is the weirdest request you've had lately? Because you guys do request, right? Can people be like, I want to hear?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't remember. We had somebody request Jolene by Dolly Parton.
Oh, what did you do? Are you just rocking it? Oh, what do you do though? Somebody's like, play Jolene, and you're like, no. I mean, like, I'm just curious.
Well, it's essentially like you going into a pizza place going, can you guys please make me some Indian food?
Well, that's true. Okay.
You don't have the ingredients. Like, you have to know the chords, you have to know the words, you have to know, I mean, you can pull some things off. If a song's kind of a repetitive, repeating thing, I can look it up on my phone and go, oh, it's A to this, and I'm quick with the ear. But then somebody's got to read that, and you don't mind by singing going, Jolene.
Yeah, that's not what I'm looking for.
No.
Yeah. All right.
They want somebody to put it out there.
Have you ever been at a restaurant and you're, usually it's a nice night out.
Can't you make me Indian food? I know it's an Italian restaurant.
I'm not even going there. I'm going a whole different, but yes, that sounds kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, sounds ridiculous.
But have you ever been at a restaurant and maybe a nice Italian restaurant and you got the guy over there playing like, what's accordion. The thing? An accordion, right? Yeah. And he's doing, and you can see him going around the room and you see him coming towards you and you're just like, oh no, please don't come over here. Yeah. So I had a guy come over one time. This is 2-3 years ago. And he comes over my table and I'm honestly, my wife and I were looking at each other like, oh God, we're trying not to make eye contact. And he comes walking. He's got little dangly bells all around his hat.
Wow.
Oh, he's legit, right? So he comes over and he's like, wah, wah, wah. He's like, what would you guys like to hear? Any request at all? And in my head, I'm thinking like, let's do some Welcome to the Jungle.
Or Creeping Death by Metallica. Second album.
Right. I want to throw him a curveball, but then I also don't want to hurt, I don't want him to feel like you guys are a creep. So
did you make a request?
No, I just said, hey, play me something good. And he tells this long story of Paul Anka and all that. I don't even remember what the story was, but so, wah. And the other problem is you want to sit here and have your dinner like, oh, really? No, that's great. But instead you have to do this. You know that feeling?
Oh, yeah, please.
All right, sorry.
I've never done that.
And these are the new theme of the show is things that bother Rob, and we're just going to talk about it the whole time.
Sad but true. The accordion is a difficult instrument to master, and when you master it, it still sounds terrible.
Yeah, nobody's like. No, as said, nobody ever. Hey, what do you play? Do you play the accordion?
Name 3 famous accordion players.
Oh man, there's got to be Accordion Joe from across. That's a great point.
I mean, I can name famous musicians who were famous doing other things than the accordion. Like the lead guitar player for Bon Jovi, Richie Sambora, was an accomplished.
Fair enough. Can you name a famous violinist?
Itzhak Perlman.
Oh, let's see. There you go.
Yeah, I can name quite a few. Actually.
All right, man. Wait, see, there's a whole musical element.
Well, the violin's is an instrument that's endearing. You can hear it.
That's very true. And you have to have talent with this stuff. Either way, I respect the talent. You know?
Yeah, I respect the accordion player. I just don't like it.
Right. Where do you stand on the harmonica?
I like it.
You do? Do you ever whip out a harmonica and just start playing?
No. I played a few jams around here where a guy will break out a harmonica, and some are really good, and some are.
Yeah. I feel like
it's a beginner thing. You could just grab it.
Yeah, and you sound like
it's and sometimes it's right on.
You know who's good at playing a harmonica? Every man you ever met over 70. I don't know why is it the grandfathers can play the harmonica?
More popular instrument then?
That's true.
Same as accordion. You're not going to meet any 19-year-old accordion.
Well, that's true. Yeah, like our marketing specialist Lauren, she's not clamoring for the next huge accordion hit.
I think she was trying to scalp tickets for an accordion.
Right. Well, maybe so. Lauren, is this true? Right. All right. So back to our topics at hand, which I love this, but great, man. How was the performance? So I kind of glossed right.
It was good.
Well, good. I've been working on some things. Just took the GC test for South Carolina recently. Man, that is a brutal test.
You said it was brutal.
Yeah, well, so as you know, most people, if you listen to the show, I'm a licensed home builder, I'm a licensed broker, I've got some good credentials, certified master builder. But so I go to take the GC test. I decided, Frank, I can build any home of any level, but I can't build a little tiny strip mall or something.
Right.
So I go out and take this test. 20 books. 20 books for this test.
I first thought you said $20. I'm like,
20 bucks, yeah. It's pretty easy to get in this.
20 books.
Nah, 20 books. And I got to tell you, it's not even little books. That you walk in.
Was it like the old encyclopedia set?
Right.
World book.
Right, exactly. And you feel like that. Some of the reading is very, it's very, very small details. What slope do you do if you're digging this kind of a trench? And anyway, so I did that recently, and that's
how many questions on that test?
Only 125. But here's the weird part about it. Like, these questions are like, okay, let's say you're a musician and you say, hey, I'd like to take a test on music, and I could do that. Guitar, let's even take guitar. And they say, when, I'm using a terrible analogy, but when Beethoven was doing his symphony, what chord would you need to play to stay able? It's like those kinds of questions in construction terms. So you're getting things that you're like, I've been building for almost 20 years and I've never heard this question.
More of a technicality than an
technicality.
Actual,
I feel like they're like trying to see what's your acumen for figuring out things.
Yeah, I've been in bands where I've had other guitar players when I'm the second or part of a 2-guitar team, and they're like, we can play a 13th chord there, and I'm like, can you show it to me? 'Cause I don't know what that means, but I can hear it. I just don't know what it. And the thing is, I can elementarily read the treble clef of music, but if it's on the bass clef, those notes are, because it's all from when I was a kid I learned that, so everything else has been with my ears.
Lauren, can you read sheet music? Okay, see, she can read
both clefs.
Boy, I think
the bass clef is where I get lost.
Maybe if I looked at it.
She's saying if she looked at it, I don't think I want to hang around.
What was the instrument you played?
Guess.
Violin. Harmonica.
I said violin too.
No.
Flute?
Yeah.
So you were treble then.
Yeah.
You were the.
And for those who can't
hear, the
hear,
bass clef with the backward C and 2 dots. I don't know those things.
Let me explain for the people, because Lauren's not on the mic, so I want to explain. So she says she plays the flute, which is also a very kind of more of an elegant type of a thing to do.
Pretty sound.
But the fact you guys can read music makes me not want to hang out with you guys anymore, because I can't.
I can barely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, got you.
I'd have to really look at it.
Perfect.
Because I haven't read it as a habit for 30 years.
Well, so, and we're going to have a music segment of this. Of course, Frank Dominick from Carolina Crush, so he's playing. Go see him every week somewhere. New place every week, right?
This Friday we're playing, but this show will probably come out next week. So.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're going to have to go back and, I don't know how we do that. Go into the future and see, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, so have you heard about these new real estate regulations that are coming out?
I have.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on this? For the viewing public, how would you describe these to them? Like, what's different?
The whole big thing to me is just being clearer with your client. That's all it really boils down to. I don't think a whole lot has changed, other than there's a couple little things that are odd. One is you have to get an agreement with somebody that you're showing homes with prior to showing homes. Before, you should have always done that. It's a great practice, but here it's a requirement.
It's the funny part is,
I've typically did pretty much that.
I kind of feel like it's like if your mother tells you need to make your bed every morning, but she doesn't really enforce it, and all of a sudden one day she comes in, and if your bed's not made,
right, you're going to get fined.
You're going to get. Yeah. That's kind of what happened here.
That's a perfect analogy. Yeah. That's how I feel all this is. Yeah. And also discussing with your seller or buyer how the commission structure works. We should have always been doing that.
We should have always been doing it. And I know, working on Carolina Bay's Real Estate, which is our core company, we talked about this from before this whole NAR thing ever came out. I said, our goal is to talk to people and make sure that we're communicating with our customers, sharing with them the important details.
It builds rapport with your customer.
Absolutely. And it's just amazing to me. You finally get to a point where you're forced to do something you should have been doing a long time ago. Not you. I mean, I feel like that's been our mantra.
As a newer realtor, every time I pick up a client, I hear the same thing. The last guy or gal I had, and then they have a couple sentences saying it's usually not positive. And a lot of it is they weren't clear, or they didn't explain, or they lied. lied. And I think lying is a strong term to use. I think they might have just withheld some information.
Omission?
Or they were, let's be honest, both of us done sales in the past.
Yeah, for sure.
What's the hardest part of the sale? Asking for the business.
You got to close the deal.
So when you throw the money on the table, that if you can get past that, and that's what I think that is. That was the way of somebody going, I don't have to ask right now.
Well, it's very much, look, if you're a young person getting into the sales industry, one of the first things you got to get over is the whole trickery into sales. Get that out of your mind.
There's no trickery to it.
Yeah, there's no trickery. It's a communication, it's rapport, it's answering questions, it's educating. Consistency. Huge. And so what's happened is people would do that thing where there's that one thing you don't want to talk about. I used to have a company years ago, and what we would do is we had a couple of clauses that some of the sales guys felt weird having people sign. And it was just because the sales guy really didn't understand how to position it. But it's like that thing. And what would happen, to go back to what you said, every time is they're getting the customer to check all the boxes. And then on the back end, the customer would be like, I don't remember signing that. And I'm like, the mission, guys, is not.
It almost sounds like a lie. You did sign it, and you should always read what you sign. But also, my job is to explain to my client what the deal is. That's my job. That's what I'm getting paid for.
That's very, very true.
They could call anybody else to do what I do.
They could call anybody, but who educates best?
Who communicates best is I think, even a bigger point.
Now you got onto something else, and I think there's an element of this show that I want to bring sales tips to people as they listen to the show. I want people who are buying something to know how to pick a great salesman.
Yeah.
One of the first things I would say is, it should never be trickery. It should be communication, education. But the thing is that when somebody is out here and they're really interested in a product, as we talked about on the last show, the deal is you don't have to trick them.
No,
you have to let them know.
You should never trick them.
Right. So sometimes people will say things to me like, is it better to do this or this? And I'll say, there's shades of gray. Really, it's not really about better or worst. Sometimes it is, I guess. But in general, it's not about good and bad.
I always go down to this thing. What do you want? What do you need?
Yeah.
There it is. And I always said in the past, any sales job I ever had, regardless of what I was selling, I sold advertising for a number of years. I sold HVAC equipment for a number of years. I sold industrial supplies, which could be anything within the building construction realm. And it was always the same thing. If you don't need what I'm selling, I can't sell to you. I'm not going to force you or talk you into something. But if there's people, me and the guys I grew up with selling, we used to joke. There's a phrase that in most conversations people hate to hear. I have a problem. But if you sell, you go, what?
Oh, problems are the key, right?
It's almost like a honing call. What did you just say? You have a problem. How can I help you with that problem? Sometimes my helping currently is referring them to somebody else, a plumber, an HVAC guy, or whatever, an attorney sometimes.
I think we just uncovered something. What is a salesman? Chief problem solver.
Yeah.
Check that out. Hey, by the way, one other thing I uncovered, I think you got a new song you should write, and it's called What Do You Want, What Do You Need?
What do you want, what do you need? There you go.
All right, hey, we'll take a quick break. We're back on to the question portion of the show. We talk about a little bit of things regarding construction, real estate. So let's start off with, throw me a question, man. What do you got?
You made the comment, you just took your GC test.
Yeah.
It was 20 books.
20 books.
A common question I get from people, because I'm not a contractor, but I work with contractors a lot, including yourself.
Sure.
People use the term contractor to kind of throw it around, kind of like artist in the music world. But what is a general contractor? Because that's a very specific term.
That's a great question. Let me tell you something. This is something important for the buying public to know. So in the South Carolina area, at least I can speak here, we have specialty contractors, we have general contractors, and then we have tradesmen, and a lot of these terms get thrown around. And home builders, what's a home builder versus a general contractor versus specialty? The biggest danger in the state, and we actually have state laws that we have been working on, is that there's misleading things that happen in this industry. We talked about don't use trickery in sales. Some guys will go and get a specialty contractor license. What's a specialty contractor? Well, it's somebody who just literally goes and pays a little money, and they could become a contractor. You could become a drywall contractor tomorrow.
A pool contractor?
A specialty contractor. Well, now, see, I'm going to put pools in a slightly different scenario. A pool contractor has to pass a test.
Okay.
That just happened within the last year here in South Carolina. Yep. So up until the last year, you could just go and, again, pay the bill, and you could fill out some forms, and you're a specialty contractor.
No testing.
No testing.
No requirements.
For a pool, right? Not for drywall, not for certain things. And so what happens is, the interesting part is the trickery became, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, I want you to know something. Rob's good. He's a general contractor. I'm a specialty contractor, right? And so there was almost a misleading element to it, when the real answer to your question is a general contractor has passed this test at a higher level. We have to understand a little bit about everything. You got to understand a little bit about concrete, a little bit about framing, a little bit about electrical perhaps, and you got to go across the whole gamut. So a general contractor should be much more qualified than a specialty contractor. So much so, state law, we've been trying to get a law passed to change the terminology. No longer would it be a specialty contractor. You'll have tradesmen, and you'll have, like,
I always consider a good general contractor as a great source of knowledge, but also a high-level project manager, because you will basically guide the project to completion, because you just mentioned before, tradesmen, okay, a plumber and an HVAC guy, a lot of times they don't commingle in the building at the same time because their trades overlap.
Right.
So if you have them scheduled at the same time, they end up not liking each other, and they end up not working well together.
Well, there's an art to it that gets underrated.
It's super underrated.
Like, so no, you hit
scheduling and all that stuff is crazy.
Scheduling, knowing when the materials have to be there, knowing what you're looking at.
Knowing when to schedule your inspections on time for the right thing.
You can cause a lot of problems. A lot of homeowners, I've found, will, in the effort to save a few dollars, they'll think, well, I can do this. I'll just find a painter and I'll find a, and there is something to be said for having a little leverage too. If I give my flooring guy, he's done $100,000 or more of floors for me in the last year or so. So
you know what product he's putting out.
I know what product he's putting out, and I have future business from him. If he's doing work for somebody one time, he doesn't show up on time, and again, my guy's great, but people will underrate that. So it's a good question, man.
You mentioned a good point where you said some homeowners try to do it themselves. Just the last Saturday, somebody came up and said, you should let my granddaughter sing. She's really good.
Oh, how old was she, by the way?
That's a 50-50 proposition, I'm going to tell you. I've sometimes been on the stage and went, wow.
Okay.
I actually feel bad for whoever's singing with me because they're better than them.
Oh, that's rough.
I've had that happen. And I've had other times where you're like, wow, your grandmother really loves you.
So could the granddaughter be like 6 years old? Because that could be cute.
6 years old, I would, that's, yes, every time.
You
for
are my sunshine.
Oh, dude, I've done it.
Like those are like
my
the
phone,
songs.
What's the key of sunshine?
Right.
Yeah,
we're getting Lauren out. She's doing the flute over there. We can do all kinds of things with
this. Flute jam,
right? Right. So, so I've got a question for you. This came from one of our viewers that had thrown this out, and I wanted to get your take on it. How do you know how to properly value your home when it comes to selling? And I think if I understood the context, it's that you don't want to sell it and leave money on the table. You don't want to get into a situation where you're putting it way over the market and people aren't buying. How do you know that you've got the right price?
Well, as a realtor, I have access to several different softwares that'll do what we call comps or comparables. And you should run them more than once in a couple different scenarios too. Because a lot of times you're looking at a house that has a pool. How do you value the pool? We had that conversation on the previous show.
Yeah.
Sometimes people put a lot of value in their pool. The person buying is like, I don't want a pool. I want 4 bedrooms. So that pool's extra.
Yeah. The pool is now a maintenance thing for me. I don't really need.
You got to weigh the options. Like a lot of times you'll find a house. They always say, where I used to hear when I was a kid, because I bought my first house when I was in my 21. Buy the cheapest house in the nicest neighborhood you can afford. And the reason being is that you'll always accrue value. But if you have the nicest house in the nicest neighborhood, you're setting the bellwether for everything else. And somebody's going to go, I'm not paying that.
I like that valuation thing. I learned this from a mentor in business years ago. We, in the home building industry, you can buy this lot and build this home, or you can buy this lot. And it's very, very tempting when you see the $25,000 lot over here.
Of course it is.
And you can build the same home and save all that money on the lot. Meanwhile, this lot over here is $100,000. I can build the same home on it. So I save $75,000 over here. But we learned something. location, as simple
More
as it
important than
sounds,
everything else.
It really
100%.
is. And so you can build those two homes 1 year, and the one is appreciating at 20% a year, and the other one is doing 1% a year. The value is going to be much, much better.
I have a few friends in Pennsylvania where I moved down from. I'm originally from Maryland, like I said before, that live in an area they have tiny little unupdated houses that are worth so much money now because for some reason, central Pennsylvania, when everything went crazy during COVID, it just, like, when I sold my house up there, what the person paid, I was like, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
they offered me over asking and waived everything, all inspections. I'm like, okay.
It's amazing to me.
Crazy.
One of my favorite home building clients, and we're still friends to this day. We built his house, I think, 16 years ago or something. But to this day, whenever he's around, we'll go and grab some lunch. And he had a home up in Massachusetts. Now, whenever you're talking about raising and escalating home prices, and we've been talking about this in Myrtle Beach, prices are getting so high, and they are a little
Northeast
strong.
It burns everybody.
You can't even touch it.
Can't touch it.
He had a little home up in the Northeast. It was an 800 square foot home.
800 square.
And I think he sold it for like $550.
I think my living room is 800 square.
Right, exactly.
You know
Right.
That's
My master bathroom is 800 square. No, but no. So he's out here. He sells it for that, and he comes down with 500,000, 550, I think it was, and he builds a house for 132. At the time, you could do that. You can't. Don't come to Myrtle Beach and ask Frank for 132 or Rob. But so he did it, and now he's living in a mansion for like a third of the price.
Crushing it. And it's probably, and that value shot up too.
It absolutely has, and that's what I thought of. He wasn't doing anything.
Again, it was location.
Location, man.
You can have that beautiful house, but if it's in a bad neighborhood, I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we had another question. This came from a person that they were, I think, again, coming from the I'm trying to sell my house standpoint. So I heard this question. They said, when I am trying to sell my home, do you believe that it's more important to have a clutter-free house where it's just all empty, or is it better to have a staged house where you have all kinds of stuff, even if it's a little bit more? I believe, and I thought of like my wife, come around Christmas time, we got Christmas gear all over the house. Does that hurt you, or would you be better having an empty house? What's your thoughts on this?
Well, a staged house or a house that's filled with furniture sells better than an empty house.
Okay, yeah.
Because the average person cannot see it.
Visualize.
So much so that you can pay a little extra when we do a listing to do virtual staging. You can have furniture put into the pictures as long as legally you have a picture of an empty room too.
Oh, but that's legal.
Yeah.
Legally
you can
required.
legally do it, but as far as I know, you have to have pictures of the actual room because people show up looking for that look.
And here's another tip.
Deceptive.
Here's another tip. Get a decent person at it. You want to see some fake looking like a like a cartoon chair over here. It's got to look legit, right?
Yeah.
How do they do that, man? Have you seen them doing this?
I've seen them do it, but it's all computer generated, and that's not my forte.
Man, I think I'm going to get into that. Now I'm interested. I'm going to go home and research this.
Just virtually build houses.
I'm going to virtually. I'm not even going to build any more houses. I'm just going to put them online and see if I can sell. You remember when the whole tokens thing was a big deal? Like, it may still be, but you could buy virtual images for things, and they cost you money. Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you remember what these are? No, well, it's sort of like, it was like
non-fungible tokens.
Non-fungible tokens. So I could buy an image.
I heard that and I was like, no.
Yeah, this sounds like a good investment. Yeah, you could buy I could buy like a little fake remote, and that might cost me $100, but there's only 100 of them out there. So
okay,
anyway,
good for them.
I'm off on a tangent. All right, so you have any other questions?
I got one in the concrete world.
We got enough time for one question, as I see.
What is the difference between in construction using precast concrete and insulated concrete form?
Precast concrete, insulated concrete form. Well, I'm going to start off with the things that are most commonly done. So there is a very, very good thing to be said about insulation, hurricane proofing in our area, fireproofing, termite proofing maybe to some extent, noise insulation, and energy savings insulation. So let's start off with why would you do one or the other. Yep. If you're going into wood, wood is still king. It's cheap, relatively inexpensive, and you can do 2x4, 2x6, and you can maximize some levels. But if I go to something called ICF, and the first thing we have to do is break down what is ICF. It's insulated concrete form. So what you have is you have two foam pieces, and they're connected with ties in between them. Sometimes these ties are made of plastic. I've also seen them on metal. And you put rebar up throughout the middle of these, and you pour concrete all down the middle. Okay. There's all different sizes. You can get 16-inch forms, but most commonly you'll do a 6-inch pour in the middle. So about 2.5 inches of foam, 2.5 inches of foam, 6 inches of concrete down the middle. Don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but what I do want you to understand is I've just created a 10+ inch wall system. And within that wall system, I've created 2 layers of insulation with foam and foam.
And reinforcements with the rebar.
Reinforcements with the rebar. We've created fireproofing because guess what? Concrete isn't known for burning down too often, right? I've created something that's very good against noise because you can't hear through it. So they're beautiful for that reason. Termites, they will burrow through foam, but once they get through the foam, they're getting to concrete. And even if you have wood rafters, you can put a little dam into the foam, which will keep them from burrowing up. So there's a lot of tricks to that, but in my mind, that's the way to go. Now, there are also things where you'll sometimes see people put 2 forms up and pour concrete down it, and then they take the forms down. That is also something that's done out there. But in the residential game, the best benefit is to go with an ICF and take advantage of hurricane proofing, noise proofing, fireproofing, hurricane, all those things. Now, my last statement on that, though, is why isn't everybody doing it then, right? It's about the money. Going back a while back, I found a stat, and it's probably even gone up since here. ICF is something, it goes up and down with the price of concrete.
Sure.
We used to tell people it was going to be somewhere around $10 extra a square foot, and right now it's probably higher than that. $10 a square foot. So Frank, you just bought yourself.
It doesn't sound like a lot.
It doesn't until you figure out.
You get all the square feet.
You just bought a 3,000 square foot house, and then you go, ooh. Yeah. That's $30,000, right?
Yeah.
So the money will be there over time. You're going to save money on insurance. You're going to save money on energy bills, but there is a payback period.
How's it doing the resale? Because I haven't come across that yet.
Not good enough. And I'll tell you why. It's all, look, if you're a salesman out there, if you're a realtor out there, and we want to bring value to all of you, you have to understand your product. Go through and understand your house. Talk to your client. Do an actual meeting with your client. Understand what they did. So I got one quick anecdotal story while we have a minute left. So years ago, we built an ICF home with my old company, and we had this beautiful model home. It's in a community nearby here near a golf course, and I'm hearing agent after agent coming through this house, and we have these ICF walls that are about a 50,000.
I can almost guess what they're saying. Look at the kitchen.
Yeah, look at the crown molding's beautiful, and I'm like, yes, it is beautiful.
Look at the granite.
But we have a $50,000 upgrade over here that they're not even talking about. They're not talking about all the stuff I just said. So the deal is, it should sell for a lot more when you talk about the value of the product.
I asked that question a little facetiously. Yeah. I know it should, and I think it should, but I know it doesn't. I don't understand why, but now it's coming clear because people don't understand the product.
If you find, so let's go back to the swimming pool. If you find somebody that's interested in a swimming pool, that swimming pool could bring your house a premium in theory.
Yes.
And if they're not, then it can bring you a detriment. So the point I would make is know your product, but it should resell for quite a bit more. If I'm selling the house, hey, call your insurance agent. You'll get discounted insurance rates. You'll get discounted everything.
If I was listing at home, it would be my listing.
Absolutely, yeah.
It would be.
For sure.
Yeah.
Good question, man.
But it rolls back full circle.
Yeah.
Build that home in a nice neighborhood so you can
build
get a high dollar for it.
Exactly. You don't want to build that home, to your point, you don't want to go in the $300,000 neighborhood if you find out that home is now going to put you up at $400,000. I don't care how good it is. You're not going to get the money back.
Unless you plan on never moving. And here's the thing that we always discuss. You think you're never going to move and it's never going to sell. But when you pass, if you have any heirs, they have to sell it.
They are going to have to sell it. Hey,
so
Frank,
always look at the resale.
You know what you just did? You did something called a callback. You called back something we talked about earlier. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Hey, as we get towards the back end of the show, I do want to kind of mention a couple of things, and these are great. People, please send us your questions. We'd like to address these. There's so many topics we can get into. But I wanted to let everybody know we will be at the home show next month. It is coming up at the Myrtle Beach Convention Center. Come out and see us. Come see Frank. Frank will be there Friday and Saturday.
Yep.
I'll be there all 3 days. Come out, ask your questions, get comfortable with the real estate market, the remodel market.
Find out why Carolina Bays.
Find out why Carolina Bays. Find out about Carolina Crush, man, and some of these tunes that Frank Dominick's playing.
As I've been saying every week in a networking group I go to, if you want a house where you want to stay, you call Carolina Bays.
Wow. Oh, ooh, I like that. A house where you want to stay, call Carolina Bays. It's not what you want, it's what you need. You know what I'm saying? All right. All right. Well, hey, guys, thank you for listening. We hope everybody enjoyed the show. We will see you all next time on the Leader Mentality Show in Carolina Bays.